My name is Wayne, and I was wanting to talk about Rooted and the experience that you can get out of this. It is a life changer. I felt like as a father and as a husband that to actually give my family, my children and my wife, what they needed or deserved was for me to be a better person. I started praying about that, about me being a better person. I put to God to give me the strength, the guidance to know what to do, what to get, where to get it at. And he put in my path the Hills Church. Rooted has taught me several things as far as your family life. It highlights on your spiritual life and your service to the community, knowing that there's other people that need it as bad but don't know whether to take that step. And the step is the hardest thing, but once you make it, it's the easiest ride.
Well, it's a great day to be in church, yes? Man, we're so glad that you're here. We want to welcome those of you who are online in the lobby, and can you help me welcome our Branchville Correctional Facility this morning? Man, we're so glad. Now, how many of you have taken Rooted before? Raise your hand. Rooted peeps. How many of you have not? Boo. Okay, so Rooted is the closest thing we have to membership. It is where God's story and your story unite, and we teach you those over a 10-week period, how to live, work, pray, write, how to get into your scriptures. Man, it's just an amazing course starting February 18th. If you've not taken it, you need to take it. It is incredible. Tuesday nights, awesome. Also, if you have not been baptized of your own doing. What does that mean? That means if you were baptized as an infant, I want you to think about being baptized again. The Bible says that we follow and believe Jesus, right, as we are followers of Christ. When we make the public declaration, I don't know how many of you were that advanced as an infant to make a public declaration of faith, but that is what baptism is supposed to be. If you got baptized as an infant and you're like, well, does that mean I won't go to heaven? No, you'll still go to heaven. That's not on the line here. I'm just going, this is a public declaration that I'm following Jesus publicly. If you haven't done that, next weekend, Thursday all through Sunday services, we have Baptism Sunday weekends. Also, how many of you have been fasting something? Awesome. How many of you don't care? You're like, I'm not fasting anything. Awesome. Praise the Lord. All right. More room in heaven for the rest of us. It's not too late to join the fast. Give up something for the next 14 days. February 2nd, it's going to be a glorious night in my household. I'm going to be eating everything in sight. Little Debbie's are just waiting there for me. I can feel it. I was reading a series of books, actually, the title set to them, and it's entitled Worst Case Scenarios. The principle behind this book is you just never know. You can actually buy this book behind me at Amazon. And here are 4 other titles by the same author. Survive being trapped in an elevator. What to do if your parachute doesn't open. Survive a plane crash. Just several upbeat, great selling books. I want to read you the instructions he gives for what to do if attacked by an anaconda. Number 1, if you're attacked by an anaconda, do not run. The snake is faster than you are. Number 2, lie flat on the ground. Number 3, put your arms tight by your sides and your legs tight against one another. Number 4, the snake will come and begin to nudge and climb over your body. Number 5, do not panic. Number 6, after the snake has examined you, it will begin to swallow you from the feet end, and always from the feet end. The snake will now, number 7, the snake will now begin to suck your legs into its body. You must be perfectly still. This may take a long time. Number 8, when the snake has reached your knees, slowly and with as little movement as possible, reach down, take your knife, and very gently slide it to the side of the snake's mouth between the edge of its mouth and your leg. Then suddenly rip upwards, severing the snake's head. Number 9, be sure your knife is sharp. Number 10, be sure you have a knife. The principle in this book is you just never know. You never know what life is going to throw at you, what's waiting behind the next corner. You just never really know. And if you wait until a crisis to develop a plan of how you're going to act in that crisis, it's normally too late. My sixth grade teacher, Mrs. Pence, told me that failure to prepare is preparing to fail. And I failed her class. So I failed to prepare. We're going to talk about today, what do you do when life pulls the rug from underneath you? Today we're in Daniel chapter 3, and we're going to, if you'll turn there, Daniel chapter 3, we're going to learn three great truths today as we walk through this text together. The truth of great strength, the truth of great nobility, and the third truth will change your life if you let it. So here we go, Daniel chapter 3 and verse 1. It says, King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. He then summoned the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincial officials to come to the dedication of the image he had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincial officials assembled for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood before it. Then a herald proclaimed loudly, nations and people of every language, this is what you are commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. Therefore, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and all kinds of music, and all the nations and people of every language fell down and worshiped the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, except for three: Shadrach, Meshach, and a billy goat. That is correct. Okay. Third one, misunderstood, beautiful goat by the name of Abednego. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These are Daniel's friends. Now, the text is from Daniel. We don't know where Daniel is, but many scholars believe that he's been, at this point, sent on an errand by the king. So he's not here during this time period. But these are Daniel's friends who have been taken captive, their families torn apart. They are slaves in the Babylonian kingdom. They've been raised to be these astrologers and prefects and all kinds of things. And Nebuchadnezzar takes away their identity. Now, he builds a statue, and the Bible doesn't say what he builds a statue of. We don't know if it's of himself or of other gods. We know that he's destroyed countries and people groups. All he wants to do is bring unity behind this huge image. This is not so much about religion here, as much as it's saying, look how powerful I am. Look how strong me, Nebuchadnezzar, is, and the whole thing with the bad music playing and all these horrible instruments going off at one time. The whole reason behind that is this is going to show how dedicated you are. As a matter of fact, in verse 7 it says, as soon as they were hearing, they began falling. This was a race to show how devoted they were to Nebuchadnezzar. They wanted to show everybody, the faster they went down, this is my loyalty, this is my guy. And Nebuchadnezzar wanted everybody to do this. And as soon as everybody's falling down, he thinks everything's going great. And then quietly, people stop looking at the statue and start looking over in the corner. And either an incredible moment of courage or an act of actual suicide, three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, have not bent the knee nor bowed their heads. And then we get there, verse 8, it says, at the time, some astrologers came forward. Now, last week when we talked about the astrologers and magicians and everything that were being trained, we know that these people are trained up for years. These are educated men. They serve at the pleasure of the king. But these astrologers work for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego up here. These astrologers that we're reading about are right here. And here's what it says. As sometime these astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews, they said, King Nebuchadnezzar, may the king live forever. That is ancient for, kissing the king's behind. May the king live forever. Your majesty has issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold, and that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your majesty. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you have set up. Now, when you do something great for God and people start to see those results, let me give you a little bit of help. Not every time you do something good and people start seeing good in you as a result, are they going to celebrate with you. If you start serving Jesus and your marriage gets better, there are going to be people who are not happy. If you start getting a backbone, self-esteem, because you start listening to the words of Christ and going, I am intrinsically valuable, there is going to be somebody who I liked you broken, I could manipulate you better that way. How many of you know in culture, in society, still today, we celebrate more when somebody falls than when they stand up? We like to be the I told you so people. We never told anybody, but we told them in our brain. I told you that was a bad person. When God is coming through you, people will get jealous about what they're doing. And this is their chance to step up. This is these astrologers' chance to hey, I can get a promotion right here. And they already know how Nebuchadnezzar's going to act. He's pretty predictable. He loves himself. So in verse 13, it says this, furious with rage, surprise, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king, and Nebuchadnezzar said to them, is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? He has a relationship with them. He knows them. He's kind of surprised. You mean you don't do this? Now, in verse 15, he says, now when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image of gold I have made, very good. But if you do not, you'll be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. Now, he's giving them a second chance. He's already told the whole kingdom, hey, if you don't do it, I'm going to cook you. But I like you. You're my boys. We've hung out before. So I don't want to cook you today. So let's figure out how to get this done. So he gives them another opportunity. But then this is where it gets out of control, and you can start to figure out how big Nebuchadnezzar thinks of himself, how important he thinks he is. Listen to what he says. If they do not do what he says, then what God is able to rescue you from my hand? That's how big he thinks he is. What God will be able to rescue you from my hand? This is a rhetorical question, not one looking for an answer. Nebuchadnezzar does not think anybody's going to answer this question. They believe he's just angry. So he's flying out there. Rhetorical questions are like, my favorite one that parents ask, do you want a spanking? I got asked that often as a child. It was a rhetorical question. I never sat there and contemplated what they asked me. Do I want a spanking? Well, I have had some character lapses. Judgment's been off. I would like to get beat back into submission. Yes, please beat me. Much to Nebuchadnezzar's surprise, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego start answering his rhetorical question. Remember, it's not a question, it's a statement. These guys start answering as if they have options. Now, I don't know if you heard the story we just read. There are no options. Bow down or be cooked. 2 options. And these guys, well, no, there's a couple more. So here we go. So Shadrach, in verse 16, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, depending on how spiritual you are, replied to him, King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. Now, if your child after you said, "Do you want a spanking?" said, "I do not need to defend myself before you in this matter," would be a dead child. You would immediately be like, "We're taking this to the next level, okay? You're not learning, you're a slow learner, I'll take it from here." But it goes on. If we're thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able. Say, is able. The God we serve is able to deliver us from it. And he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. If you hear nothing else from today's message, understand that God is able. And he will deliver you one way or the other. Maybe not the way you want it, but it ends good for you. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. God is not a myth king. He's not some sort of abstraction or lovely idea or some sort of statue we made that we worship. He made everything we see. He stands above time, space, and history, and he can deliver them from the furnace. And he goes, "My God can deliver us from your hand. Your God is able. Our God is still able." Martin Luther King, on a very famous sermon entitled "God is Able," on the eve of the day we celebrate, I wanted to bring up one of the things he said. He says this: "Think about the fact, for instance, that the earth is circling the sun so fast that the fastest jet would be left 66,000 miles behind in the first hour of space race. In the past 7 minutes, we have been hurled more than 8,000 miles through space. Or consider the sun. Our earth moves around this cosmic ball of fire once each year, traveling 584 million miles at the rate of 66,700 miles per hour. By this time tomorrow, we shall be 1.6 million miles from where we are now. So when we behold the expanse of our outer space, in which we are compelled to be measured stellar distance in light years, in which our heavenly bodies travel at incredible speeds, we are forced to look beyond humanity and affirm anew that God is able." God was able in creation story, and God is able in your story. God is able in your individual stories. I have seen God reconcile broken marriages with my own eyes. I have seen God liberate people from horrible addictions. I've seen God heal people. I've seen God forgive the darkest sins and transform people back to an amazing person. I've seen God use the fools of this world to confound the wise. You're staring at him. I've seen God provide for our greatest needs in miraculous ways that nobody saw coming. A couple of years ago, a good friend of mine attended church here. Her name was Desiree Wheeler. She was in the hospital. She had all kinds of things medically wrong with her. And I went to visit her, and it was just me and her in the room. And I said, "Desiree, what can I pray for?" And at this point, she's just a little over 90 pounds. She said, "Pastor Darryl, I just want to make it to my daughter's wedding. If I can get there, that's where I want to go." I said, "Well, let's pray for that." I was like, "Is there anything else?" She's like, "You know what? I wish I could have enough strength to be able to provide for my family. I've never been able to help financially to give to my family." The story doesn't end super great, actually. Desiree does not make it to her daughter's wedding. She does not die of natural causes either. One night, she is sideswiped by a car and killed instantly in a car wreck. Had she died of natural causes, she could not have her prayer answered. Because of her death and the way it happened, God heard her prayer, and she was able to provide for her family a life that they could not provide for themselves. God is able. Even when it doesn't look like it, God is able. There's no other way for that to happen. God is able. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego testify before the king, and they're like, if we're thrown into the fiery furnace, O king, we want you to know we're not, our God is able to save us, and we're not going to serve your gods. And here is the most monumental statement of faith in the entire Bible. It says it right here. But even if he does not. Say does not. So he's able, but he chooses to do not. But even if he does not, and up until this point, he has does not in their life many times in Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's life. They are in slavery at this point. Their family has been torn apart. Their nation has been destroyed, and God has not shown up really in their case. And he goes, even if he does not, he is able, but even if he does not, I'm not going to live my life your way. How many of you are able to ask yourself this question? What will you do even if God does not? What will you change if God does not? He's able, but he chooses not. Let's say you're looking for the right relationship, and you're like, you know what, God, I really want to be married, or I really want to be in this situation. I really want to go there. And somebody goes, well, you have to give on this conviction, or you got to give up a little bit of this, or you got to bend the knee just a little bit. Are you willing to bend the knee just a little bit to be happy? Or maybe you're sitting in a financial situation where you're like, God, I know you can help me out of this. You're just not. Why is it not working? He's able, but he does not. What do you do then? Let me ask you this question. If you're waiting for God to do something amazing before you tell other people about how great God is, who's testing who? It's weird that we, the created, would tell the Creator what he should do. And then when we, the created, tell the Creator, hey, I'll tell everybody else of your goodness when you provide goodness to me. Yet when we straddle this across the globe, some of the things we complain about are the very things people would consider themselves blessed over. I know people who would freeze for hours for the opportunity to worship together. What will you do even if he does not? 4 years ago, I don't remember, it was around October, we had a big staff shakeup here, and it wasn't good. We made the news again. One week we had 1,100 people, and the next week we had 200 people. And people were going around and going, hey, you know what? I told you so. Told you that would happen. Told you. And I'm sitting here going, what am I doing? Jesus, we have a choice to make. We can move. We can go, hey, this isn't great. There's 200 people who gathered again and go, you know what? We're not moving just because everybody else is moving. Either you're called or you're not, and when you're called, it's paralyzing because you don't get to move. And some of you, you're like, man, it is awesome. I love coming to the Hills Church. There was a day where nobody wanted to come to the Hills Church. That our name was tarnished. What will we do even when he does not? We had no money, no people. We're in the middle of COVID. Doesn't look good. Everybody's like, give up. Myself, Pastor Dave, this staff were like, but God, you called us to do this. What are we going to do? Well, we just keep doing the right thing. Going, I'm not bowing my knee to anybody. I'm not giving up my convictions for anybody. I believe that there's a church that is called and required in this city to reach people. And we did that, and many of you are the benefactors of that. Many of you, because of the faith of 200 people, are here today. And I can't imagine how many more are going to be blessed when we take the faith of 2,000 people that go, we're not budging. We're going to make a difference. We're not budging. We're going to believe that God is able, and we're not moving even if He doesn't. That's the measure of your Christianity. Verse 19 says, and Nebuchadnezzar was furious. Surprise! With Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And his attitude towards them changed. In order the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual, and commanded that some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So the men wearing the robes, trousers, turbans, and clothes were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent and the furnace so hot that the flames killed the soldiers who took Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And there were 3 men firmly tied, fell into a blazing furnace. Now, the reason the furnace is 7 times hotter is because he's really angry. He is super, super angry. They have spit in his face. And they're like, hey, cook him. Really cook him. Then in verse 24 it says, then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked the advisors, weren't there 3 guys we tied up and threw into the fire? They, the astrologers, replied, certainly, Your Majesty. He said, look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like the son of the gods. Who do we know who can cheat death? Who do we know who looks like the son of gods? The furnace that looked like the end of their life began the greatest experience in their life. What looked like the end of the Hills Church was actually the strongest beginning to the Hills Church. It looked like it had been burnt down to the ground, but it actually got burnt down to a foundation so it could be rebuilt. I love this. This is the 3rd thing that will change your life if you let it. They were hoping to be delivered from, everybody say from. They were hoping to be delivered from the furnace. That is how most of us live our lives. We never want a bad day to come our way. So we pray, God, don't put us in the furnace. So they prayed, God will deliver us from the furnace. But God decided to deliver them in the furnace. In the furnace. The safest place to be in any horrible situation is where Jesus is. It doesn't matter if it's in the furnace. It doesn't matter if it's in the middle of a storm. You want to be wherever Jesus is. And Jesus is not the American version of Christianity that has been painted to you, that when you give your heart to Jesus, no bad days will happen, no storms will come your way. That is wrong. It is actually more accurate to live like these guys as exiles in a foreign land and going, hey, when you give your life to Jesus, you're going to feel pain, you're going to feel lonely, you're going to feel like there's nobody there. The only difference is no matter what you go through, you're never alone. No matter what situation, you want to be where Jesus is. And think about this. These guys would have missed out on the adventure of a lifetime. Do you think Nebuchadnezzar tries to kill them again? No. As a matter of fact, when they get pulled out, I would love to have been there to see his reaction. Hey, guys. How are you doing? Now, the Bible doesn't ever talk about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego again. It doesn't have to. Once you're fireproof, that's all we need to know about you. I promise you, anything Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego ever tell the king again, they're like, that's what we're doing. That's what we're following these guys. And I bet you those astrologers, it doesn't say it, but I bet you homeboys got cooked. I bet you they're the next guys thrown in. They're like, no. Fireproof guys, you're wrong, you're in there. He wants to be on the right side of history here. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, I bet you at the end stages of their life, when their old men started going, hey, how would our life look different if we had just bent our knee in that moment? Nobody would have blamed us. We're just trying to survive. Nobody would have felt bad. They would realize, people would go, okay, well, we understand you're just trying to get by. The greatest decision you'll ever make is to go, God, everywhere I go, I want to do it with you. I want to be with you no matter where you go, how you do it, why you do it. I want to go in it with you. I don't care if I'm sad. I don't care if dark days come, if great days come, in between days come. I want to be wherever you are. And I don't know what furnace you're facing right now. I don't know what terrible thing you're like, Pastor Darryl, I'm in the middle of cancer. I'm staring death in the eyes. And God might not save you from cancer. Hear me very clearly. But He's waiting for you on the other side. He's in your furnace with you. He's in there every time you take chemo. He's not taking away your pain. Hear me very clearly. When you follow Jesus, people think we're going to have a hunky-dory life. That is not correct. That is not scripturally accurate, and definitely not my account. But I can promise you the safest place to be in any terrible situation is wherever Jesus is. Because at the end, I'm fireproof. Death cannot destroy me. The grave is not the end of me. I go on to live a successful, happy life on the flip side. So for every one of us, I don't know what you're staring down, but I want to encourage you. Don't bend your knee. Don't give an inch. Go down in the furnace. Even if you die in the fire, tell everybody, my God is able, but even if He doesn't, I will not do things your way. I'm not interested in living with your gods or your foreign methods in my life. My God is able, but even if He doesn't, I will still serve Him. And I will love Him, and I will honor Him. Will you stand with me all across this place? Vision Sunday is 2 Sundays from this week. You don't want to miss it. I got something to show you that's really big. But it's only on Vision Sunday. We're not going to repeat it any other time. So if you miss it in January, it doesn't come back till September. And we're not putting it out for the world to see. So you got to be here. Vision Sunday all that weekend. Today we need help in the 3 back rows. If you're sitting back there, if you can help us, man, collect those chairs. We just stack them 10 high. Got to get ready for another service. If you're comfortable today, will you stretch your hand out towards me? May the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn His face towards you and give you peace. God bless you. Have a great week.